Whoa, whoa, whoa. I get back and there's like, what, 3? Where are they all at?
Sorry.
It's just the intros aren't...
Yeah, excuses every time. Where are they at? Tell me.
It's just we've been recording podcast intros for 4 straight days now.
Yeah, but we've got
very
so
tired.
many to do. We need so many more.
You haven't let us sleep. You haven't fed us.
Have you drank our coffee?
I had to eat part of
Have you
Graham's
heard
leg.
of caffeine?
I'm bleeding a lot.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we can make it. Yeah, we can make an intro.
1, 2,
Podcast.
Yeah. It's crap. It's crap. It's crap. It's
Ow!
crap.
Ow,
Sorry.
We'll do better.
Just
We'll
go.
do better.
All right, well, you're hungry? Here's a piece of kale. You can split it. And when you're done, I need you back in the studio. I need you on your A game or else.
Okay, Jordan.
We're sorry, Jordan.
We're sorry.
Yeah, we'll do better.
Good.
Hey, everybody. Hey, things are
Yeah,
good over here.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
My name's Ashkahn.
I am Graham. And today's question is kind of a long one, actually. So
Okay,
I've...
well, we're gonna sit down.
Chapter 1. I've heard you talk before about jumping into business before worrying about a business plan, assuming that it's not required for financing. Since you don't really know who will come in and what it will, in parentheses, in quotes, be, until it's actually open. That being said, what would your business plan look like if you wrote it now versus then? So basically just like, is it important to have a business plan, or assuming that you have money and you're not using this business plan to go get a bank loan or something, how valuable is it to a center owner?
And I guess how different would a business plan that we wrote now be compared to one we wrote before we opened?
Yeah.
Just to see if they would be close at all or not. So maybe let's give a little history here, because we did not write a business plan before we opened.
No, we had literal back of the envelope calculations. Still have that envelope somewhere, I think.
And then we did write a bit. I mean, we have a business plan that we sell to people, so we obviously wrote a business plan. So we have a lot of experience both not doing business plans and doing business plans.
And it's interesting in that our business plan, I think, is actually useful for centers who are getting started and for even existing centers to get a sense of your numbers. But it's because you can really easily play with variables and test out different scenarios.
And it's based on real information.
And I should say, I view the financial sheets in our business plan as still useful in that context. It also comes with a 30-page written packet for banks, which I like going through the process of writing out a formal 30-page proposal for your business. If you're not getting funding, I still think is fundamentally flawed and a really silly exercise to go through.
So let's rewind for a second. Why
Why
do people?
You're right. This is something that I say. Yeah.
Why do people write business plans? There's a couple reasons.
They have too much time on their hands. One.
Yeah, they're not even going to open the business. They just want to write a business plan. To me, the biggest one is because someone is asking you for a business plan.
Yeah.
Like a bank or an investor, or you're trying to get money to fuel opening your business up, and that person wants to know that you're serious about it. They want to know that you've done your homework. They want to see what they want you to digest information about what the business is going to look like and give it to them so they can see if it's going to be a good investment or not. And, they just want to make sure that you're willing to put some work into this too, I think is part of it, right? Just seeing if someone will actually sit down and write a nice, well-made business plan. So especially when you're getting really conventional sources of funding, like bank loans and stuff like that, it's very normal. I mean, it's going to be hard to get a bank loan without a business plan.
Impossible, yeah.
So that's a big reason that people are making these.
And even within those, there's a big difference. Like I was mentioning, that 30-page written out business plan. Banks want that and investors don't. Banks still want to see that. Investors don't really care.
If you're getting a bank loan, like an SBA-backed bank loan, the SBA just has, here's how you should write a business plan. It's all this very Lego piece sort of thing where you're putting together exactly what's expected of you, and they want to see exactly what they're expecting to see.
Yeah, business partners, even non-investors, just you're trying to bring in another business partner who you're going to be doing and running the shop with. Sometimes that's nice to have. Just a low-level business plan, this can be something that's 3 to 5 pages of written content and 3 to 5 pages of financials, right? Something kind of digestible, relatively small, but you need something to be able to show to someone just to make sure you're on the same page with assumptions. But that's kind of it,
Well, so then there's also people will, there's an idea that just the act of putting the business plan together is a great way to do the proper research and training and homework you need to do to open your business successfully. That, it's not so much the end product that really matters. It's just going through the steps to look at your city and your demographics and your finances and your marketing and just like being forced to kind of sit down and think through all that sort of stuff.
Like the classic quote, the plan is nothing, planning is everything. You get so much through the act of planning that it warrants everything that you had to go through.
So I think that's the kind of groundwork for where we're coming from here as we start to talk about business plans.
And there's one other, you'll sometimes get asked for really like even lower levels than we were talking about with, like 5 pages of written and kind of financial stuff for smaller aspects of your business. For example, even talking to the health department, they want to see might want to see some little at least model of how you're going to be running and written out content. When you're talking to a landlord, they might want to see financial projections, just kind of, give it a once over and make sure that your predictions are good. So I'd fit that in like, business plan junior, or just writing out some projections is the other area you'll see this come up. And that one's really hard to avoid.
Yeah. So let's kind of go through those in that same order. Like if you're trying to get money, you're probably going to have to put a business plan together in one of those ways. And like, I feel like that's the more obvious stuff. If you're getting a bank loan, you're probably going to have to put that big serious business plan together. If you're getting investment, you might have to put less ones together. So I think really the question asked here is if you're not doing those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
What do you like? What's the benefit, or should you put a business plan together?
And I was just standing over. I'm like, I wonder how deep he's going to go down this rabbit hole, since the question specifically said I don't care about that category.
Yeah. So we're narrowing this to that, and that's an interesting one because I do feel like it's not the most common thing in the world for a business plan you try to come up with before you open your business to be that in sync with reality.
And this is the fundamental problem,
your business, right? Like it's just hard to know. Like you just don't know exactly what's involved in the business. You can make guesses, and it's not that you shouldn't think about this at all. You know what I mean? Like we didn't write a business plan, but we thought about what the numbers might be, and we thought about what we would do for our marketing and how we would launch
centers and
yeah. So like we didn't go through the process of really like writing this all up or formalizing it or even making it like that concrete by just writing it out for ourselves. We kind of just went on a like absorb information bender, I guess.
Yep. And we were totally wrong. Like even with the limited information that we put together and massive amounts of rounding and
we
stuff
first
like
thought that like we would have to do I think 3 floats a day to stay viable. We're like anything more than 3 floats a day is just butter on top.
Yeah, we misunderestimated a lot of stuff, including everything that salt can destroy and all the costs of staffing. You're not just going to be running the shop yourself.
Yeah.
Comes with payroll taxes, and we didn't know anything.
And even if you don't know, even if you've run a business and you know payroll and common finances and stuff like that, like it's just really hard to know exactly how the uniqueness of your business is going to run. Like the construction stuff is really unique to float centers. Like any amount of past business experience is not going to necessarily, without you talking to other people and learning things, is going to make you have a good prediction of, the repairs and maintenance or how much the salt can damage or what you should be planning for in terms of cleaning time and all that sort of stuff. Like some of that stuff is just experience that you build.
And this is a plug for, if that is the goal, you don't need funding. You do want to write a business plan for yourself to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into. You're going to need to work with someone. It doesn't have to be us. You don't have to get our business plan, but you do need to consult with another float center. And probably that means paying them for their time, because getting into the weeds and actually figuring out what, with your plans and your location, it's realistically going to cost to open a center is not a small thing. And even then, they're just going to be estimates too. Like keep that in mind. Every contractor you approach is going to have a different number than what the other center that you're talking to or working with or the other consultants have told you. So even after you get your best estimates in place, there's still a huge amount of needing to do your own research and actually get quotes from people in your area. And it's very time consuming, which I wanted to kind of lay out as one of the bases for my argument against doing these in-depth business plans for the most part, is it is really time consuming and it's probably not going to be accurate.
And like you're starting a business, like your time is very, very valuable. Like you're very strapped on time when you're starting a business. So even if there is like, I'm sure some value to like really going through all those steps, but isn't going to be as worthwhile as maybe spending that time doing something else as you're on the kind of crazy path towards opening up a like storefront business.
So So what does that mean for what you should be definitely doing? Like, you decided to open a float center. You're just not going to go out there without doing any financial projections
Right.
and like launching. Like, there has to be some preparation. So what's the level of preparation that is valid or that we recommend, Ashkahn?
Buy our business plan.
I mean, you totally should. Like, it's an amazing business plan, and the numbers are filled in from across the country, so it does a lot of the work for you. But that wasn't the direction. I love the shameless plug, but that was not the direction I was headed. I mean, first of all, I think just being able to get a sense of overall like profitability of a center and revenue potential and expense potential, just in the broadest possible terms, is good. And fortunately, our industry is like relatively open. I mean, if you call 24 float centers, probably 5 to 10 of those are going to be willing to at least give you some ballpark numbers or share with you honestly how they're doing. So just calling around and doing a little basic research to make sure that this is even a business that's viable in the kind of way that you want to run a business.
Right.
Because the truth is, float centers aren't insanely profitable. You're not running a commercial real estate business here. You know, it's the bottom line is, you know, float centers can definitely be profitable and can definitely provide for their owners, and you can get to the point where you're not working your shop and it's still making money. And it's just, you're not going to be making, you know, $500,000 a year personally in take-home capital as a result of running this center, you know, or running a single center. So being sure that you have that reality in mind, I would say is a really big one.
Yeah, and just understanding, you know, sometimes just learning like a little bit about the numbers will help you clarify what you want to do as you're opening. You know, maybe you want like 2 more float tanks or 2 less float tanks than what you were thinking, because you can kind of see that there's different economies of scale there, you know, and just go float at other float centers.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great way of just absorbing information. See how they run, watch the staff as they're going to clean, see how long it takes between when you get out and the next person get into your float tank. Like, there's just so much information you can glean from just being in the environment that I think can be helpful. And again, it's based on something real. Like, you're really seeing a real float center at work. Like, it's just hard. I think I can't imagine anything that we put in our original business plan was like, or that we would have put in an original business plan would have been that close to reality.
It was so far from reality. Like this is pre-opening. Like, again, when we were doing back of the envelope calculations, we're one of those people who their landlord requested to see what their financials are going to look like and their predictions and stuff like that. So we did have to prepare pretty much a little like 2-pager of what to expect. And none of the numbers on there were vaguely accurate. They were all just fiction. I mean, at the time I was like, these are actually probably going to be pretty close to reality. And I was so wrong. Like, startup costs were so vastly higher. Ongoing costs were way higher. Those costs scale as you want to get out of the business and as the cost of living goes up in your area. Like, there's the amount of salt damage again and repairs, and there's just so much we didn't budget for when we were doing this initially.
Yep.
And so there's this kind of sentiment a lot in the business world. And you see this too. It's like, other than banks, pretty much everyone in the business world has also acknowledged that old classic 30-page business plan is not worth business owners' time doing. You know, and banks, because they're such this solid institution, you know, they want to make sure that the people coming on board are diligent, that they dot I's and cross T's.
It's just like a protocol. There's such a built-in protocol. It's such a big system.
Yeah.
That it's just like, it's hard to rely on whoever the bank person is making like gut decisions and stuff like that. Like, they just, I think, need to have a more formal process.
And ultimately, a loan is just a different kind of application.
Yeah.
Right? Like, all they want to make sure is that over time, this person can pay their loan payments back. As opposed to an investor where it's like, they want to know that this thing can get wheels and like carry them far and make them a bunch of money on the upside, right? And the bank doesn't really care about that. They want safety and stability.
Uh-huh.
And in that sense, a big business plan and someone taking the time to go jump through all of their hoops says, this person is the kind of person who's willing to take time to jump through hoops, and there's a certain stability there, and that's part of what they, pun intended, bank on.
All right, let me tell you something else here. Yeah, I think the other thing just to be cautious of if you're going into writing a huge business plan is that I think it's very common to think of a bunch of pitfalls that will never actually happen to you. Spend a lot of time coming up for solutions for problems that you'll never actually run into, and there's no way to figure out the problems you will actually hit. Yeah. That ends up being, I think, one of the biggest just like wastes of time is you really just have to, you sit down and you're like, oh, this is probably going to be an issue, this is probably going to be this, and you like come up with all these solutions and figure out how you're going to get around them, and then you open your business and like none of that happens, and there's this whole other group of things that are actually like the challenges you have to deal with. And that I think is especially, like, beyond finances and stuff like that. That is just one of the hardest things to somehow predict or come up with before the fact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and the things you think you know are often wrong. So it's a challenging state. How would our business plan now be different than our business plan when we first opened? Well, again, we didn't really have one when we first opened.
Yeah, so it exists.
And also all the assumptions that we did make back of the envelope were totally wrong.
I mean, the difference now is just that it's based on real information. Like we literally just, like, to write the business plan we did for the Float Tank Solutions one, we just, like, took our real finances and crunched them and took our real float numbers and, like, used them with our finances to figure out how much of stuff we're using per float. Like, it just had, like, reality to fuel it in a way that you don't have beforehand.
Yeah, and we have the advantage, too, of being in this position where we help a lot of other people in the industry and do consulting and stuff. So we get to see construction bids come through and actually update our numbers kind of nationwide based on a variety of points. So for us specifically, we're actually in kind of a really great position to have an accurate sense of what a business plan would look like and what it can provide. But if we were just a new center coming into things and wanting to write a business plan, again, I would probably go and try to find someone to work with and get some consulting. There are, several people out there now who do consulting. Dylan through Art of the Float podcast is a great one to contact too. Of course, again, we have our business plan. We do one-on-one consulting. There are a few other centers who've kind of started doing that same sort of service. But I mean, the truth is, you don't need a big business plan. You don't need complex profit and loss plus balance sheets plus your cash flow statements all written out. But you do need to get a good sense of how this thing is going to behave or how it's likely to interact with the real world. And again, whether it is even at its best going to be profitable enough for you. And you're not going to do that without talking to someone who's been through it or hopefully a couple people and kind of averaging those out. So, if we were to do it differently now, and again, we didn't have the resources we have in terms of our own business plan and stuff, I would probably go out there and be looking for someone to help me or consider grabbing our business plan or something like that. It's just you shouldn't waste hundreds of hours preparing this stuff, and it's not going to be accurate if you try to do it on your own, and that's kind of the bottom line, I guess. I did have one other piece of advice, which is less. So there's one other side of the business plan that's not financials, and that's more just like being able to operationally think through what you're doing. Like, how are you going to market stuff? How are you getting the word out? Like, there are people who fund their entire center, build it, and are kind of just fields of dreaming it, right? Like they never had a marketing thing, nor they're just like, oh, I'll build my center, and then people just show up, you know? So there's kind of this trend in a lot of small business development to move towards pretty much what's like a single-page business plan. So there's something called, I believe it's the business model canvas. There's definitely one called the lean canvas, which is kind of through the lean startup organization and movement. And basically what these are just single-page outlines. They usually have, I think, about, like 8 to 11 little segments on there. And basically, like, if you fill in these 8 to 11 little boxes, it will walk you through all of the core elements just necessary to have a business, from marketing to getting financing at the beginning, how you're going to staff it, what the supply chain is like, different things like that. Who are your vendors? What's your unfair advantage? What are you coming into that another person starting a float center wouldn't have? And those are just really useful. You can fill one out in an hour, or you can take a day to fill it out, and that'll give you a nice overview without wasting a ton of your time. So that's as opposed to like that 30-page written business plan. I recommend checking out one of those kind of one-page business model canvases.
Yeah, something to help you give a little structure to, making sure you're not totally neglecting some section of what you're going to need to run your business.
And then just pull out that envelope, take your pen, start crunching numbers on
Scribble,
the back of it.
And that's it. You should be good.
Cool. Well, it's definitely just turned into a big pitch for our business plan, which I guess is good for us. We should probably be advertising our products more on a podcast, but it also is just the truth. So don't. My opinion is still the same as when you ask this question, which is I do think it's foolish if you don't need a business plan for funding to go out there and write a full 30-page business plan and really complex financial sheets.
You have, I think, more productive things you can do with your time.
Yeah. Cool.
Hey, if you have questions about any of our other products, you can just go over to floattanksolutions.com/podcast, send them in, and we'll chat with you. Except just like it'll be like a one-sided chat. You won't be here.
That's how I like it anyway. I like my audience to not be able to immediately talk back.
It's like a two-sided, one-sided chat with the two of us.
All right. Bye, everyone.